Hello everyone, I'm Alberto Barragan, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to create a test automation project with Selenium in Java from scratch without writing a single line of code. That's what we'll be looking at today. And first of all, I'm sorry if something doesn't go well because, this is my first video on YouTube, and besides that, I want to do it without any cuts so you can see how in just a few minutes we can have a test project without having written a single line of code just by entering a prompt. And and that's so you can see how fast it is and how there are no cuts where I could be adding things, or if something goes wrong, we'll see it together. I want to do it live so that we can all see how it works, or what problems might come up and how we would solve them. So let's get to it. I won't ramble on any longer. So how are we going to create the test automation project with Selenium in Java without writing a single line of code? I'll say it again. You'll see how we don't touch anything. Well, we're going to do it thanks to two MCPs. For those who aren't very familiar with MCP, MCP refers to a set of tools given to a language model, an LLM like ChatGPT or Claude. Here, what we'll use is Claude, since in my opinion is the model that codes best right now. According to various studies, it's the one that programs the best. So we'll be using Claude. Personally, I like it, but really any language model that can communicate using the MCP protocol would work. All right? So what MCP is about is that up until now, language models, a regular LLM, would just respond to us, give us an answer to something, but couldn't actually perform actions. A very simple example is that it was like it had a brain, right? It could answer things, but it didn't have hands. It couldn't perform any actions. It could search the internet and do a few very limited things. But with MCPs, what you achieve is that they can perform actions, that they have those hands to carry out the actions using the tools we give them, right? For example, there's the FileSystem MCP, which is an MCP that provides the tools to interact with the file system on our computer. That way, it can read files, modify files, delete them, do whatever it wants with them. Or what I'm here to present to you today, the Selenium MCP, which is a library I created, and what it allows is to communicate with the browser. There are a series of functions, such as opening the browser, accessing a URL, taking screenshots in the browser, clicking. All of those functions, there are 37 in total that I have developed and that I'm going to show you for communicating with the browser, okay? So thanks to those two MCPs, we're going to give the language model those superpowers, and that way the language model will be able to access the browser thanks to the Selenium MCP, and then write our test project thanks to the FileSystem MCP, okay? So let's take a look. Let's get to work after this introduction. I hope I haven't bored you too much, so let's get to work. Here, what I'm showing you is my library, which is the MCP Selenium, okay? In this library, I've written the documentation in both English and Spanish. I haven't found anything, not a single video about MCP Selenium or any test automation MCP on YouTube. That's why I was motivated to make this video. So here is the documentation in English, but since we're speaking in Spanish, let's continue in Spanish here. And you just need to have Java 11 installed and the Chrome browser, okay? And then Cloud Desktop, since we're going to do this test with Cloud Desktop, all right? The features I mentioned earlier about how we've given these superpowers to the AI, these are all of them. We're not going to go through all of them, okay? Anyone familiar with Selenium will recognize all of these, all right? And things like launching the browser, closing the session, navigating to a URL, going forward or backward, everything, okay? Uh, Interactions with elements, checking the state of elements, taking screenshots. We even have the ability to execute scripts and all these things, okay? So, as I mentioned, we're going to use this library, which is mine. I'll put the link in the video description, all right? So you can access it. And then we're going to access or use another one, which is the file system library, which is official from the protocol, model content protocol, okay? And it has what I mentioned before, reading files, writing to files, editing files, creating directories, all right? These are options related to the file system, okay? So we're going to use these two. So, as I said, let's get to work so you can see how quick and easy it is and how you would do this, all right? First of all, you need to have the Cloud Desktop app installed, okay? Here, we just open it, and as you can see, we don't have any tools configured yet, all right? That's the way we need to look at it. So what I've done to make the whole installation process much simpler is create an installer, okay? For Windows, you just copy and paste this line, and for Mac or Linux, you copy this other line. I'm doing this on a Mac, but I've tested it on several Windows machines and it works perfectly, all right? The script is different internally for each operating system, but in the end, the log we're about to see is the same for both, okay? So in my case, I take this command, but for Windows, you would use the other one, all right? And then we go to a terminal and it's as simple as just pasting it, okay? So here we can watch as it installs. It tells us that Selenium MCP is being installed. The first thing it does is check that we have Java installed, so Java found, right? And if it finds Java, it downloads MCP Selenium. What this installer does is bring in the library I've been talking about, the one I made, MCP Selenium, and it installs it on your computer, okay? The installer is also, all of this is open source, so you can see everything, all the documentation and all the code, so you can check that all it does is make sure we have Java and bring in this library, okay? And once we have MCP downloaded, what we do is it tells you where your configuration file is located. It tells you here where your configuration file is, and it tells you to add these lines to the file, okay? So that it's set up. And with that, the installation would be complete. So to go to the configuration file, we could just go directly to that address, or a little trick is, from within Cloud, we go up here to Cloud, to configuration, and the configuration window opens up. We click on developer, this will be empty, and then edit configuration. What this does, it opened up back here. What this does is it opens up where the configuration is directly, so we don't have to go all the way there, okay? So we would open it, and I opened it from IntelliJ so that later we can see how the code is created, and that's it. And this is what would come up. First, if we don't have anything configured, this is what would appear, okay? So now, what it says, what our script says is that we should add this configuration. So we take it and simply add it, okay? And now, as I mentioned, besides mine, this is like a bonus. We're going to add another MCP, which is the FileSystem one, okay? So in FileSystem, the documentation appears here and tells us that we need to paste this, okay? I already have mine configured here with my own settings, and I'll explain to you how it works, okay? How it works is the same. We give it a name, just like we did with Selenium. The command is npx, we install it, we bring in the library, and now the next line is the directory we grant access to, okay? The file system doesn't have access to our entire file system, it doesn't have access to our whole computer. It only has access to the directory we specify, okay? And to the subdirectories within it. That is, it will only have access here to demo video and whatever is inside it, okay? It's true that if we give it access to the entire user folder, then it will have access to our whole computer, but for privacy and other reasons, it's better not to configure it that way, okay? So the next thing the script says is to restart Cloud Desktop, okay? All right, so we close it. We open Cloud Desktop. The problem is that you have to restart it because this is something very new, the MCPs, and for now, that's just how their setup is, okay? You have to restart it. They don't have it properly configured yet, okay? And I'm going to put it here so we can see it, okay? I'll put it here so we can watch how it creates the files, okay? When we start it, so before we clicked here and it was empty, and now we click here and we already have Selenium and we already have FileSystem, okay? In FileSystem, we have the tools we saw earlier, and for Selenium, the ones I mentioned to you that had 37 tools, these are the ones I developed myself, okay? So it can connect to the browser, so it can browse, all the ones we saw before. There are a total of 37, okay? I think these are all the ones you need to work with them. So that's it. All the configuration is done now. If you already had it set up before, you can skip everything up to this point, and now it's time to get to work. I like to use Opus because it works much better, and now all that's left is to enter the prompt, and that's it, okay? I'll tell you about the prompt I'm going to use. Everyone will use the prompt however they like, But what I want to show you here is that with a very simple prompt, you can create the project without having to do any programming at all, okay? So what we're telling it here is using the MCP Selenium tools, which, well, is what I'm showing you, AC the source demo, which is just for this example, but it could be any website we want to automate. Log in with this username and password and add a t-shirt to the cart. Inside is like a product store, and I'm just telling it to add a t-shirt to the cart. With the collected data, create a Selenium Java test project for me that contains the page object model directory structure with features, and create the project in this directory, which is the same one we gave it access to earlier, okay? Generate only the features, definitions, and page objects corresponding to the test you just provided, as well as the necessary files for the project to be executable, okay? We're going to give it to him. So it's a very simple prompt that anyone can easily understand and utilize, making it accessible to a wide range of users. With this straightforward input, the system already possesses a clear understanding of the request, and now it is actively in the process of accessing the specified website, which I will demonstrate and show you right here so we can observe precisely how it is navigating and accessing the site. I'll make it smaller so we can see how it's working. Now, send key, it's already sending the username, sending the password, and we can watch the actions. If you notice, it has clicked on the element. Later, I'll show you how to close it. And here it says, perfect. I've reached the product page. I see there's a t-shirt called Source Lab Volt t-shirt. All right? And I've already clicked on it. We can keep track of all the actions it's taking, and it's taking screenshots of each one. Excellent. I can see that the t-shirt button has changed to remove, which indicates it has been added to the cart. I can also see the cart icon at the top. So it has already completed the entire scenario we specified, and all we did was give it a prompt, right? And now what it's going to do is start creating our test project, okay? Now it says, now I'm going to create the project structure with the page object model, cucumber features, and the necessary files. Then here we can see how it's creating each of the directories, all right? The SRC, and now if we come here and refresh, before it was empty, and now we already have the SRC, we have test, we have Java, we have all the directories. And now, well, it's going to start creating it's creating all the directories, and now it's going to start creating the files, okay? And while it's creating them, so we don't get bored, I'll show you that you can see each of the actions it's performing. So it launches the browser, which is Chrome in this case, accesses the source demo URL, takes a screenshot, and sends by ID. It has checked within the website that the user input is an ID, and it can access the username by that ID with this user. And the same goes for the password. And then it clicks on the login button, it saw that it's an ID, it analyzed it, and then it goes on performing the actions, okay? And, well, it has already created the directories, and now it's creating the POM, which, as we can see, we already have it here. You can see that we already have it here, and it's a POM with all the libraries, Maven, at least version 11, Selenium version, Cucumber version, and it's all done here. And it keeps going, it's creating the feature. We can already see the feature here with, given that I am on the source demo homepage, it's creating everything. After the feature file, it has written the base page, which if we go here, here it is, okay? Which is, the page object, the base for importing the driver, okay? Initialize the elements. Then the login page where we have the three elements it interacted with, okay? The username, the password, and so on, and it puts them at the top. On top of that, it even follows best practice guidelines. So the feature has been created perfectly for us, and now the login page has placed the elements at the top and then the functions for each one as needed, which will now be called from the step definition, okay? So yeah, entering the username, entering the password, it does a wait, which it handled all by itself, the wait. Although it's true that inside the code, I have it set to do a wait. It did it all by itself. You've already seen that we didn't tell it anything at all, just to log in and add a t-shirt. And before the element, it does a wait, clears the input, and sends the username in this case, the password in this case, and clicks in this case. Look, it has already created the state definition, so if we reload, we have it here now. See? We have the state definition. I think it has already created everything. Yes, it has created everything. In summary, I have successfully completed the requested task. I accessed the website, logged in, added the t-shirt, and created a test project. It created everything with the Maven configuration, the driver manager, the test runner, and it tells us everything. And now it tells you run MVN clean test, and that's it, okay? But look, we have the hooks here to start the driver and close the driver, and the runners to be able to run the tests. Cucumber property, we have everything, everything, everything. It's just amazing, okay? We have everything from I'm on the home page. Well, the one for look, login. If we go to it, we can navigate. It's done perfectly. Login, it enters the username and password as we've already seen the case. And inside the product, well, we access the product page. So let's try it out. MVN clean test, it tells us everything right there, okay? And now it will log in and buy, well, the first time Maven downloads the tools. And now we have the execution here. It enters the username, password, and we log in, okay? It gave an error that, if you remember from before, the cart expects there to be a 1, but it finds 0 because a product hasn't been added. This is what I mentioned to you earlier, that a modal popped up saying that Google says the password is compromised because it has already been leaked. So whenever we have a problem, we just tell it, which I think is one of the most powerful features. We say an unexpected and significant error has occurred, and it's specifically that when attempting to log in to the system, a prominent and intrusive modal window suddenly appeared on the screen, clearly stating that the password associated with this account has unfortunately been compromised and potentially leaked to unauthorized parties. I want you to implement a crucial modification within the comprehensive driver configuration settings, specifically ensuring that these persistent and often intrusive Google modals are completely prevented from appearing or displaying themselves at any point during operation. And with that, now we will send it over to the next segment. And here it tells us, okay, perfect. Let's proceed to carefully edit the driver manager file so that this particular issue doesn't happen to us again in the future. And now it immediately starts the process of editing it right there, as expected. And we don't have to touch a single line. I understand the problem. I'm going to update the driver manager to add the Chrome options that disable Google notifications and security alerts. What it has done is disable notifications, disable the pop-up blocker, turn off the save password bubble, and specifically disable this one. So now it does absolutely everything for us. We haven't touched a single line, and if you notice, this has been updated and all the arguments have been added. Now it's gonna give us an error. If you look there, it's gonna give us an error. This can happen. No, it was because I didn't have that configured properly. It's already happened. I had the browser here, but I'll launch it again. I will launch it once again and then proceed to show you precisely how incredibly quickly it runs through the entire test. Look, boom, 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 and it is completely done. And it already successfully adds the product to the shopping cart, and absolutely everything works perfectly fine. So this would be it. You have already clearly seen how it meticulously created the project with all the comprehensive project documentation. Plus, right here, it thoroughly explains all the necessary requirements, how to effectively run it, and what specific technology we have diligently used. All the detailed documentation is readily available there, and it is fully and completely functional. You've seen it. It created a scenario for you, launched it, and it works perfectly. That modal popped up for us, and all we had to do was tell it, look, this modal appeared, there's a problem, disable it. And honestly, it's amazing. It's amazing. And the other option I wanted to show you is that once we have the project, let's open a new conversation and imagine that we already had this project created beforehand. We have our project, which tests source demo, because we've been working on it for a while. We have our own way of programming, and now we want this to add new scenarios for us. Well, it would be as simple as adding a prompt as simple as this. Starting from a project I have at that address, which is the one we've provided, add a new scenario that accesses source demo, which is what we're testing in the trial we're doing, and tries out different logging possibilities. What this does is observe our way of programming, see how we have the entire file system set up, and it will add new scenarios for us. And here it's saying, I'm going to understand your structure in order to add a new scenario. And the other thing is, I've shown you how to create a new scenario, but this way, what you do is, we already have one, and now we go ahead and add new scenarios. And for the same reason, it launches the browser, tests it, and right now it's reading how we have the files set up. And now I'm going to create a specific feature for the different logging scenarios, including both successful and error cases. And you can see how simple and basic the prompt we've given it is, which is simply, starting from the project I have here, add a new scenario. It's something that exists within natural language, and it is very easy to simply give it that particular prompt, allowing for a straightforward interaction. And I'm going to make this smaller because we already have it here. If you remember, before we only had the feature, and now we also have the login feature with the feature description, a background, and all the scenarios. In this case, successful login, another successful login. This one is with a user with a problem, a user with performance issues, failed login, login without entering a username. It has created a bunch of scenarios for us, and then an outline with multiple valid users. It has also created the login steps for us. It has added new login steps, and it's still doing even more things there. And what else do we have here? The login page, well, it has added a lot more things, and it is still diligently writing because at this very moment it is actively generating a brand new dedicated test runner. This is particularly useful in the event that we specifically desire to execute only the login related tests, for instance. That is precisely what the system is currently in the process of accomplishing right now. And and the good thing about this is that it creates everything. It explains everything it's doing to us without us having to do anything. And I repeat, and I'm sorry for being repetitive, not a single line of code. It's doing everything all by itself, okay? And on top of that, it's creating specific documentation for this, okay? Um, Now when it finishes, we'll run it, okay? So it's added new functions, and now it's summarizing everything it has added. It has added a feature, a login validation feature with 7 scenarios. If we refresh, we have it here, okay? It has added a bunch of scenarios. And the step definition, another login validation step, okay? It wasn't satisfied with the other one, so it made this one too. And it has created documentation, right? It told us yes. I created the login test scenario. Let's refresh so everything shows up now. And it has created the documentation here for these specific login scenarios, okay? In fact, it's even creating documentation for each of the 9 scenarios we add. So if we now run mv and clean test again, it gave us an error, okay? This is something completely logical and can happen, okay? This error, well, it comes up here. It's from the assets. It's not a problem, but just so you can see what happens, we will copy this. We will copy the error message. Let's proceed to the error, which is located right here. We will copy it for this purpose and then say, okay, we have successfully encountered and identified this particular error. And we send it over, okay? We send the error we got, and now the error indicates that we're using unit 5, but we're importing unit 4, okay? It hasn't properly checked the whole POM, but that's not a problem. That is, what we're doing with this is still much faster than if we had to write it ourselves. And and the good thing about this is that it fixes the errors by itself. It has access to our file system, it has access to how we code and how we have everything set up, and it edits it on its own. Perfect. It has already fixed all the imports to use unit 5, okay? So it explains to us what has changed, and now we can run it. MVN clean test, MVN clean test, and now it's running the scenarios. I'll show you here how it's running them. There it ran one, there it runs another that does login, it runs another one. As you can see, it's already running everything without any issues. This performance one, what it does is it takes a bit longer to log in. That's why it's stuck there. Invalid user. Uh, so yeah, it's running every single one of the scenarios we've created. And as you've seen, I haven't touched not a single line of code. The only thing I did was it gave an error and I just took it and passed it along. And it itself realized that the problem was due to different versions of Junit and fixed it on its own. I didn't have to do absolutely anything at all, okay? It's there, well, running the test, and we can see how all the tests are turning green, okay? And there it is running. Let's wait for it to finish running all of them. And well, that's basically what I wanted to show you, that we can start from a user from a project we already have, or create our own from scratch. I think it's finished now. That's right. We've created 21 tests. 20 login tests, and one test for adding a product to the cart without having touched a single line of code, and in just a few minutes. The problem was that I got carried away talking here, and I've been explaining this to you for quite a while, but once you know how to do it, it's simply just a matter of getting started. As you've seen, it's a very, very, very simple prompt, and and it's very powerful, okay? With the Selenium MCP and the FileSystem MCP, as you've seen, if we don't have a project, creating the project takes just seconds, because it's like, okay, go to this site and do the test I want and create the project for me, and it creates it with documentation, with commented code, and with the entire directory structure set up correctly. And if we already have it, because we've been working on a project for a while, adding a scenario, you've already seen the prompt. Analyze how I code and add this new scenario, and it adds documentation for you. And you've already seen that I've added 20